Many writers have captured the history and glory of Paris. The French author Victor Hugo immortalized the city's common people. In the sewers, amid the waste of society, the hero of Hugo's novel Les Miserables, Jean Valjean wages the final struggle between good and evil within his own soul. The backdrop for the novel is the violence of 19th century France in the decades following the French Revolution. Hugo writes about the problems that faced the French people during the years leading up to the 1848 revolution. A slow economy, government policies that favored the wealthy, and poor harvests that resulted in lost jobs and rising food prices. As a young man, the novel's hero, Jean Valjean, is poor and desperate to feed his sister's hungry children. He steals a loaf of bread and is captured by the authorities. His sentence, 5 years in prison. Several attempts to escape would add years to his term, and bitterness would crush his good nature. After 19 long years, Jean Valjean is released from prison. He is now a dangerous man. As an ex-convict, Valjean is refused work and shelter in every town. Despair or fate brings him to the home of Bishop Myriel. The bishop calls Valjean brother and shares his home.
Madam, only an extra place.
Unfortunately, Valjean has the mindset of a criminal. He steals the bishop's silver. Valjean seems destined to return to prison, this time for life, but the bishop protects him.
Oh, my dear Jean, I'm so delighted you've come back. You've got to take the candlesticks.
When the police come with their prisoner, he says, no, 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 I gave this to him. This is my present to him.
You must take these. Here are your candlesticks.
This present is what he gives to buy his soul.
Obliged to report to a parole officer for the rest of his life, Jean Valjean instead breaks the law by running away and changing his name to Madeleine. In time, he becomes a prosperous factory owner and the beloved mayor of the town of Montreuil. The newly arrived police inspector Javert watches Monsieur Madeleine. Javert is convinced that he is Valjean, but he cannot find any proof. Javert tells Monsieur Madeleine that he believed him to be the fugitive Jean Valjean until he learned that the police had found the criminal.
I wrote and informed the authorities. What did they say? That the real Jean Valjean has been arrested.
Valjean has a choice. If he does not reveal his true identity, he will be able to live in peace. Unfortunately, an innocent man will go to prison in his place if he keeps silent. Valjean realizes that he must do the right thing and turns himself in.
I am Jean Valjean. Release the accused.
After 3 months, Jean Valjean escapes from prison. He recovers money he had buried before he turned himself in at the trial. Valjean returns to the streets of Paris, where he can safely hide away with his adopted daughter, Cosette. Inspector Javert, however, is close behind. Years pass, and then they are all swept up in the insurrection of 1832, a time when French students revolted and demanded laws providing equal education and equal rights for all French people. Valjean plans to leave immediately for England with Cosette, but they cannot leave. Marius, Cosette's beloved, is at the barricades with the other revolutionaries and in grave danger. Valjean arrives at the barricades to find Marius and comes upon Javert, now a prisoner of the revolutionaries.
I would expect to find your sort here.
I ask for the privilege of executing this man.
Take your revenge then.
Go, Inspector. You are free.
Valjean retrieves the wounded Marius from the litter of bodies and escapes.
The Inspector Javert cannot accept this. Perhaps salvation can come from below. That God is perhaps not up there, but down there with the common people, with the suffering, with misery, with criminality. When Javert finally has to accept that Jean Valjean is a saint who has saved him, he cannot live with that and commits suicide.
Les Miserables expresses Hugo's passionate belief in the spiritual possibilities of man and society, despite the presence of evil, as if he envisioned a long struggle and the poverty that persists today. He wrote in the foreword of the novel, "So long as ignorance and misery remain on earth, there should be a need for books such as this." Les Miserables also expresses Hugo's fight for democratic ideals and his belief that all people, even the poor and outcast of society, deserve basic rights.